The next story I'm going to share comes from a lady and her family who arrived in Golden August 6, 1948. 2 days later, they bought 55 acres on a hogback north of Golden on the banks of Van Bibber Creek. August 10th saw this lady, her husband, and 3 sons, aged 10, 11, and 13, arriving at the acreage with a car pulling a 2-wheel trailer containing several tents. 1 tent for the parents, 1 for the oldest son, 1 for the 2 younger sons, and a big army tent for supplies. 2-foot holes were dug in the sand of the creek to provide water to drink. They cooked over a camp stove, and a waterless cooker from a 5-gallon can sometimes cooked their evening meals. They acquired a Jersey cow, who they named Duchess, and quartered her under a plum tree, which they called Buckingham Palace. They acquired a cement maker, and sand and gravel from the creek was mixed with cement to make a firm foundation for the house. With lumber from an old sawmill on the White Ranch, and other supplies from Duffenbach's Lumber Company and Meyer Hardware, the family set to work building. The roof, sides, and floor were in place by Halloween Day, and they moved in. The building project continued throughout the window, and rock from a pile of a former clay mining operation in the vicinity provided stone for the veneer of a 1,300 square foot house, which is still occupied by the family today. Some members thought they were fools to build in the gap, certain they would get blown away. And it was Thea Gamble, the Golden librarian, who visited them on her spotted horse. The boys often met Mr. Schwarzwalder with his bag of rocks on his back, collecting samples that would lead to the uranium discovery of the Schwarzwalder mine. They named the homestead Polita. It's an Osage Indian name that means camping place and where the fire is. This lady was my neighbor, a close friend, and an inspiration with her pioneering spirit. And she was also the lady who invited me to Delphians. And so this leads me to my story. The first night I ever spent in Golden was in actually 1958. And my husband Dwayne and I were en route from San Diego to St. Paul, Minnesota. We stopped in Golden to check out the Colorado School of Mines, which Dwayne was considering for postgraduate work. We stayed in an old motel that was located where the first Faith Lutheran Church is, and incidentally, we are members of that. We thought Golden was a quaint little town and the mines campus was beautiful. The next August, we arrived in Golden with our home, 35 by 8-foot house trailer, pulled by a 1955 Ford convertible. Dwayne had been offered a scholarship at Mines, and it was almost dark as we started driving up North Wadsworth, and we found that we could get to Golden by taking 32nd Street. And so we headed out west on 32nd. It began to get very dark. There were few houses. There's miles of this curving road, and we were sure we'd miss Golden and were heading back into the mountains when we finally saw the lights of Golden. We parked our trailer at 215 Cheyenne Street. It was during our first months in Golden we learned 2 things about Golden weather. We bought the trailer from California, and there was a canvas awning that we promptly put up. On September 24th of that year, there was our first heavy, wet snow. You got it? The awning flattened against the trailer. Not only that, but the 2 doors on that side were our only exit, and we were trapped. At first, the neighbors, you didn't realize our panic, and they were just kind of laughing. When they realized that we couldn't get out, they immediately came to our rescue. However, we were slow learners, and we put the awning back up with new poles. And then we learned Golden's best kept secret. It was the fury of a front range Chinook, and the awning became a has-been. In the summers, we'd pull our trailer up into the mountains so Dwayne could do his field work. And then when we returned one year, we parked it at Big Trees Trailer Park. In the fall of '63, we realized we were outgrowing our trailer, so we moved into Prospector Park. This is a settlement of World War II barracks on Highway 6 in 19th Street. The housing was reserved for married students and offered little in the way of luxury. The walls were almost paper thin, affording little privacy. Conversations could be easily heard by the neighbors. It was considered the other side of the tracks. And because of the hordes of children scurrying around these buildings, it was named Rabbit Village. In the fall of 1964, that part of the Prospector Village Park was raised because they wanted to enlarge the intersection. Well, guess what? The intersection was really never enlarged, and I think it was an attempt at population control. However, we were the first students then to move into the new housing, which was Prospector Village. And it was a cluster of hexagonal shaped fourplexes and eightplexes. And the modern shapes, it was the pride of the campus. However, until one day, one of the units began sinking into the clay pit. Apparently somebody had mispositioned the side of the sandstone ridges, and so the support for the structure was not there, and as a result, it began to tilt. And this happened at the Colorado School of Mines, the world's foremost college of mineral engineering, the originator of the curriculum called geological engineering. Let's see. When Dwayne graduated, we needed to move off the campus, and so we moved into a house at Maple and 16th Street, and rented from Blossom and Lawrence Criley. It was right next to the fraternity house, and our kids became very friendly with them. Our daughter referred to it as the paternity house. There was a little bit of exchanges between myself and the students over the level of the stereos, but they were really good kids. It was then in 1968 that we moved out to a secluded foothill valley north of Golden. It was owned by Sam West, and after careful analysis of our credentials, he did sell us some land. However, we still hadn't learned the wind, and it was only after a few windstorms that we finally put on the north side of the house. We constructed a block wall, and we redid the roof with tile. I have been on Golden, at this time I wrote the book, for 21 years. And we'd seen some rapid changes from a small rural town with a brewery and a school to mineral industry employment. The streetcar tracks were gone. The courthouse was gone. The house at 16th and Maple was gone. And I'll add Prospector Village is gone. Big Trees Trailer Park is gone. It was no longer the 1-2 block little village that we came to. And I hope, as I wrote at the end, that it's for the better. But we can't help feeling very nostalgic for the sleepy little college town that has kind of disappeared into the mist of our memories.
An interesting sideline followed World War II. During the Cold War, we were told that absolutely an atomic bomb was sure to fall on Denver. And we should be prepared. Fraught with fear, elaborate plans were in place for this event. R1 schools had one mantra: save the children. And so teachers were taught their pupils that they were to, when the signal came, they were to crawl under their desk, roll into themselves into a ball, cover their heads with their arms, and just remain there. They had to save themselves because certainly the bomb was going to fall. Teachers, this little exercise was called duck and cover. And a Delphia member was teaching at Mitchell School now that was located near the post office at that time. And she said that then the R1 schools had that all children in Jefferson County were going to participate in Evacuation Day. And under this, they were to draw. What happened, the teachers had ID for all the kids. They had a register for the pupils, and they loaded their buses, and the object was go up to Clear Creek Canyon and avoid the fallout that was certainly going to follow the atomic bomb in Denver. We were all settled. The kids were loaded into buses, and incidentally, she adds that it was a day of the huge deluge of rain. It just came down with buckets. So they had the buses loaded, and the kids were in the buses ready to go when there was a mudslide up Clear Creek Canyon. They had nothing else to do but just turn around. So they drove around town for a few blocks, and then they all went back to school. She adds that my coat didn't dry out for 3 days. She said, "What a fiasco. So much for civil defense," unquote. Another member wrote the last chapter of the book. She arrived later in Golden, and she said, "We have kept a record of all the mammals and birds. This includes the date of their arrival and departure, when they migrate. So far, over 100 species have come to our area. Golden is so located that we found the commingling of western birds, eastern birds, and high mountain birds that come to our feeders in large numbers during the migration period. When a golden eagle soars high over North Table Mountain, we watch with binoculars. Sometimes he spies a mouse or a bunny, and he zooms down to capture his prey." She recalls, "In the past 6 years, we have observed a decrease in some kinds of wildlife. Up until 1977, we frequently saw red and black foxes. Each year, that has decreased. Prior to 1977, we saw coyotes several times each year, but we could hear their cries at night. We see the deer and the big bucks only a few days in November during the rut." She closes her chapter and our book. She writes, quote, "There are benefits and pluses from progress, but the loss of some kinds of wildlife is one of the prices we should pay for that progress. With hope, we anticipate the future. As the Coors industries continue to expand, the Colorado School of Mines begins another century of service to mankind. As the area develops into the solar capital of the world, we will continue to appreciate the beauty of the birds and wildlife in our midst, which intrigue and teach us the remarkable lessons of nature."
As you can see, the book spans the time from the horse and buggy to a modern time. The ladies of the club candidly recorded with humor the days of their lives when life was simple, a time of abundance, tranquility, and compassion, a time when in 80 years a small town grew into a suburban city, a time when folks believed in God and they had great faith in the future of our country.
Oh, wonderful.